you. I'm with you. What do you have in your hand? The tool that I gave you. Watch me make it work on your behalf. Forget the criticism. Forget your self-perception of what's going on. Forget the perception of others, right? Like just do what I told you to do. And I love that. Hello, lifters and listeners. Welcome and welcome back to the Lift Her Up podcast. I am your host, Latrice. So glad you guys are joining me again on today. I took a little break last week. If you haven't had the chance, go back and look at the live I did, our lounge and lift, our very first one, the Sunday before this previous one. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I do plan on doing a bit more lives this year. Just let me know in the comments what sort of topics you want me to discuss. Last time I kind of just kept going with the whole valley concept that the Lord had been bringing me through, but I am so glad you guys continue to tune in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Like, thumbs up, hit those bell notifications, share this with a friend, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you are watching. All the things, y'all. All the things. And I promise you need to stick around to the end of this episode because I got some very special announcements that I am going to be bringing forth to you guys, and you are going to want to hear it. You are going to want to hear it. You don't want to miss it and what is coming up. So, like I mentioned, over the last few weeks, I have been very open and transparent about this valley season that I've been in, that the Lord has been walking me through, y'all, and it's been painful, but I'm grateful, honestly, because a lot of you guys have resonated with it, and it's been connecting with a lot of y'all, and I'm grateful for that because it shows us that we're not alone in this journey. And although a lot of us have become familiar with our valley season, I don't want us to get so familiar with it that we think that we'll never come out. And I don't think God wants us to become so familiar with the valley that we are unaware that He can bring us out of it and that there is another side to the valley. So, although we can acknowledge the fact that we are in the valley, we also had to acknowledge all the things that the Lord has done. Be grateful for the things that He has brought us out of. All aspects of growth we need to acknowledge and just be thankful for. And I was reading the comments and just getting the feedback from you guys, and the Lord reminded me that there was a time that I wouldn't have been able to sit here in front of you guys in this way, in this capacity, on camera, talking to an audience, a community of people. Like, I just would not have been able to show up as I have today. And it's because I've had this deep relationship with fear for a very long time. Thank the Lord that I am, past a lot of it, but it still does come up and bubble up inside of me sometimes. And being in the valley, I am very familiar with fear. Again, the fear of the shadow of death. I am very familiar with fear, what it looks like to me, what it feels like. And the Lord reminded me to be grateful for the things that I've overcome in the past. So it's like looking back on previous valleys that we didn't even realize maybe was a valley season that we were in. But I just wanted to talk about that fear for this episode and how we can work through what this is. And I'm using myself as an example, right? So there was a point in time where I wouldn't have been able to do this. And a lot of y'all might be thinking, Trees, I can't tell. Like, I can't tell, but look what the Lord has done, right? But I actually grew up very shy. I was a very low risk taker. I kept my head down. I colored inside the lines a lot. I very rarely got in trouble. And when it was, I was very quick to pivot because my worst feelings as a kid were feeling as if I disappointed people or feeling as if I let people down. And also, being criticized was very difficult for me as a child. Can you relate? Can you relate to this deep fear of criticism? Because that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So, when I was told that I was doing something wrong or maybe not even wrong, but just a different way of going about things that someone else would not go about it. It wasn't wrong, it was just different. It was just my way. I immediately just interpreted that in my mind as if it was unacceptable. And so I started to shape myself into the mold of everyone else's perception of me. I started to mold myself into those expectations. And I would hope that people would not find fault in me, because I'm like, okay, if I'm changing to what they like, then I'll be more accepted and people will like me more, and then I can live in that. So that is where people pleasing came in. That is where perfectionism came in, and low self esteem. And that is a very, very deadly, very dangerous trifecta. Okay. But this fear of criticism that I had, it kept me very sheltered, kept me very to myself. And I was living in a shell, and it impacted my relationship greatly with God when I started walking with Jesus, because I was just so scared to mess up in front of him. I was scared to try anything new, to do anything new. I had this fear that if I was imperfect, that God didn't want to use me. And my past and my trauma informed me that everything I did just wasn't good enough, and that any mistake that I had, that I would be rejected. And those insecurities told me that I should keep myself from him, or keep certain things trapped behind, a door or whatever, just keep them locked away, just out of fear that he would judge me, and out of fear that he would no longer desire to use me. And it got to the point that I would have ideas, but I would not go forward with the ideas because I was so self conscious about what people would think, about what people would say, about people rejecting me, about being seen. Honestly, I had a deep fear of being seen, because I'm like, oh my gosh, if I expose myself in this, and that means that people are going to think whatever, or have whatever expectation of me. Like, can I live up to that? All those things, the fear of being seen. And that's a whole other topic that I could talk about on another episode, the fear of being seen, and how I honestly think that it is tied to false humility, which is actually a pride issue. Again, topic for another day, right? But fear of being seen, I deeply had it. And I researched fear of criticism for this episode, and while I was looking it up, I found that the fear of criticism oftentimes shows up in people who have avoidant personalities. So it's like you avoid social interactions, you avoid any sort of social attention, even if it's like a promotion that may come up for your job, any opportunity that comes up for you to be seen, or for you to interact with other people, you avoid it. Fear of criticism. You avoid it out of being rejected, fear of rejection, fear of that criticism, fear of showing up, of people not approving of you. So that is often a thing that will come up. And I was looking that up, and I was like, Jesus, that was me to a T. Like, it was different opportunities that would come my way, and I'll be like, I can't take that. Like, I can't do it. In my mind, I couldn't fathom even crossing that threshold. It just didn't compute in my brain. And how many of us are like that? Like, let me know if you feel it, But even though I was facing that fear, like I had that fear inside me, I was still in this internal battle, because there was part of me deep down, I did want to speak up. There was part of me deep down, I did want to seek out the opportunities, not knowing that it was the Holy Spirit, like working on my behalf. Like, this is what I created you to do. Like, you have these desires inside of you because God has placed them inside of you, and he wants to get it out of you, right? But that fear of criticism, and also deeply the fear of failure, it wouldn't let me live out that truth. It wouldn't let me. I was capped for a very long time. Again, how many of us? Let me know in the chat. Raise your hand. Give me a whoop de whoop, something. And I know the question comes up for a lot of us who may be still battling this at a high level. How do I overcome this? Latrice, you here now. Like, what did you do? And this is not to say that all fear of mine is written. I have to pray through a lot of things, but I can say that I am a lot further along in my journey than where I used to be. Like, again, referencing those old valley seasons, we have to look at the growth from where God has brought us to. My valley today looks different from my valley 5 years ago, even a year ago. Like, the valley looks different. The fear looks different today than what it did years and years ago when I first started in this journey. So how did I get here? What did I do? And honestly, the answer is simple, yet is difficult at the same time. But literally, I changed my mind. I changed my mind. That was it. That's it. That's it. And that is not to say that my mindset shifted immediately overnight, like just a whole 180. But it does mean that I started to view the problem differently. So, what I did is I started to take myself out of the center and I placed God in the center of the issue. So, my focus then shifted to God. So I became less aware of what other people were saying, or less concerned about what other people were saying, less concerned about what I even thought about it. But my question then became, well, what does God want me to do? How does God see this? What is it through his lens? What can I do for God? So I started to decenter other people, decenter myself, my self perception, my perception of what other people are perceiving me of, right? Because that's how we get all confused in our minds. And I started to recenter God. And I think that's where a lot of us get so caught. And I know it's low key. It's probably like, oh, Latrice, are you saying that I'm selfish? Maybe. Like, maybe unconsciously you are. And selfish not in a way of you are not concerned about others, but selfish in a way of you are so concerned about your perception that others have of you that you miss out on what God is trying to do in and through your life. Sorry. Not sorry. Let's get it together. Fear criticism, okay? So we cannot allow our fear of criticism and rejection to limit our relationship with God and with others, with our purpose, with our destiny, all the things. And y'all know I got to bring it to the Bible. Let's talk about some people that dealt with this fear in the Bible. Moses. Let's read. And I don't know why the Lord, he continuously has me in the book of Exodus, but I don't mind because I absolutely love Exodus. So we are going to go to Exodus 3. And it reads, but Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And God said, I will be with you, and this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? Then what shall I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am sent me to you. And that's Exodus 3:11 through 14. Another next chapter in Exodus 4, Moses answered, what if they do not believe me or listen to me and say, the Lord did not appear to you? Then the Lord said to him, what is in your hand? Let's pause there. What's in your hand, you guys? A staff, he replied. The Lord said, throw it on the ground. Moses threw it on the ground, and it became a snake, and he ran away from it. The Lord then said to him, reach out your hand and take it by the tail. So Moses reached out and took the snake, and it turned back into a staff in his hand. This, said the Lord, is so that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has appeared to you. Moses said to the Lord, pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. The Lord said to him, Who gave human beings their mouths? Who made them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go. I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. That was a long reading, but it was good, right? Like Moses was saying to God, you got the wrong guy. Okay, what am I going to say? What if they don't listen? I'm not good enough for this. He had every excuse in the book. Fear of criticism, wrapped up, everything, even himself, self criticism, right? And even in that, God told him, nah, like I have the right person. It's you. And you're going to see this through. Notice how God responded to Moses every single time. Moses was giving him every excuse. The Lord didn't even fully acknowledge like the emotions that Moses was feeling. And I think that's so interesting that he didn't even speak to the fear. Like he just combated the fear with the truth. I'm going to be with you. What's in your hand? Look what I did, you know? So I just think that is so powerful. Sometimes God does not plan with the fear. He's like, what you got with you? I'm with you. What do you have in your hand? The tool that I gave you. Watch me make it work on your behalf. Forget the criticism. Forget your self-perception of what's going on. Forget the perception of others, right? Like just do what I told you to do. And I love that. There's another person in the Bible that I wanted to highlight that the Lord keeps reminding me of, that I have been feeling deeply connected to in the Bible lately, and it's the sinful woman in Luke 7. So I believe it's Luke 7:36 is where I'm going to start, and I'm going to skip around a little bit. So let's start. When one of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him, he went to the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. A woman in that town who lived a sinful life learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house. So she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. As she stood behind him at his feet, weeping, Jesus, this part always gets me. She began to wet his feet with her tears. Then she wiped them with her hair, kissed them, and poured perfume on them. When the Pharisees saw who had invited him, saw this, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would know who is touching him and what kind of woman she is, that she is a sinner. Now let's drop to verse 44. Then he turned toward the woman and said to Simon, do you see this woman? I came into your house. You did not give me any water from my feet, but she wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You did not give me a kiss, but this woman, from the time I entered, has not stopped kissing my feet. You did not put oil on my head, but she has poured perfume on my feet. Therefore, I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, as her great love has shown. But whoever has been forgiven little loves little. Ugh, that's so good. I might do a whole Bible study on her one day. Just like do like a little character profile thing because I love that story so much. But fear of criticism would have kept this woman from her act of service, her obedience, and giving a love offering to Jesus, right? So her focus at that time was not on her status in society, a sinful woman. So imagine it was probably related to of some form of like sexual immorality, probably, but she wasn't focused on her society, but only on the God who had forgiven her much. So Jesus said, and then there's a parable in between the verses that I read about a money lender and them forgiving of the debts of two individuals, and how the greater debt that is forgiven, more love is felt because they have been forgiven of a greater debt, right? So notice how she didn't stop serving the Lord when the Pharisees or culture for us was telling her that it was unacceptable, but she focused on serving the God who had forgiven her. She was showing the love because of the forgiveness that she had experienced. And ultimately, it was only God that she listened to. She didn't stop serving him. And that's great because only his thoughts matter at that time. Only his perception matters. Only what the Lord thinks matters. And so, shout out to this woman. Like, now we're talking about her centuries and centuries later. about this love offering in this act because she didn't go with the status quo. She didn't focus on the criticism that was happening around her and to her in the world, right? So we need to focus again on what God is saying to us if we want to eliminate this fear of criticism. If you want to overcome that, the first thing you have to do, again, decenter yourself, decenter others. It doesn't matter what mom, dad, sister, brother, cousin, best friend. It doesn't matter what they're going to say. Your classmates from back in the day. It don't matter. We cannot focus on only solely satisfying others and ourselves because then we will live out of that place when God desires for us to satisfy him, to live for him. Okay? So that is pretty much it with the fear of criticism, right? And I'm so glad y'all tuned in, and I'm so glad that the Lord downloaded this because fear of criticism is a heart issue, all right? It is a deep heart issue. And now we are going to get into the announcement because it ties perfectly into this. Speaking of heart issues, all right? This episode is going to be released on the anniversary date of my very first book, The Redeemed Heart. Let me pull it up for you guys. This book, The Redeemed Heart, okay? And it is crazy to think that it's almost been a year or a full year at this point that this book has come out. But the feedback that I've gotten over the last year on this has been extremely encouraging for me in my journey. So many lives have been changed and transformed. And I can't wait to see what the Lord continues to do with it. And he actually gave me an idea very recently about how he wants me to move forward. So I am going to be hosting a program called the Redeemed Heart Club. All right. And it is going to be a 6 to 7 week program. I haven't exactly mapped it all out yet, but we are going to be unpacking the book and we're going to be discovering different heart issues within ourselves that are laying dormant, some things that the Lord wants to highlight to us and wants us to uproot. And we're going to be healing those heart wounds, all right? All the things that have been going unnoticed. In the book, I have a chapter about low self-esteem, about fear, anxiety, jealousy, comparison, doubt, brokenheartedness, and it's all about my journey of overcoming those things. And obviously, of course, all the biblical backing and strategy on how to get about of those situations. Also, I'm so excited to announce that to go along with the book, I have been creating this workbook, this virtual workbook, this ebook, I should say. And that is also going to be like a companion to this. So it's going to be a guide for us. This book, we're going to be reading it and we're going to be doing the workbook portion as well during the program. And all of that is going to be for you to purchase as a guide when you register for the program. I'll be launching it next month. So it's going to be done in March, in about mid-March or so. And that's going to give you guys enough time to go purchase the book and the workbook if you are going to be in the program. So all of that is going to be in the description below, and I'm going to have all the details for you guys to learn more information. Obviously, as it gets closer, I will be talking about it a bit more, but I really pray that you guys join me on this journey. I am believing the Lord for it to be life-changing again. So the Redeemed Heart Club, y'all be on the lookout. Go check the description for all of those details. I love you guys so much. This is going to be an amazing journey. Thank you for watching, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. Until next time, remember to stay encouraged. Bye.